Sam, I'm gonna. Which, by the way, I went back and replayed the whole. You're not a. What did he say? You're not a long guy, are you? One of
Yard
the
guy.
yard guy. That was classic delivery.
That's good.
Did you hear Coach Rule calling your name on the PA system?
I did. Yeah, I was in the press box.
He said I
Just
did.
so you know, I did the. When I was up there, I did the. I'm not going to return this kick motion that the kick returners do when the ball goes through the end zone.
Stay
As
away.
Brett
Stay
Bielema
away.
called the T, the T signal. But I went with the whole. I went with the full. Not going to do it. That was Alante Brown, who used to be a former Husker. I think he's still at Michigan State. He had the best. I'm not returning this kickoff motion. And Evan and I have always laughed about it because you should be demonstrable when you do it. Like some guys are just like, not really. But you're actually supposed to do it the right way, and Alante was always the best at it. So I was like, not going to be returning this kick from the press box.
So I thought it was interesting too because I was reminding Ravi this weekend with all the shenanigans of pulling stuff posts down and all that other stuff. I said, Sam kind of laid it out there about 5, 6 weeks ago when he said, I get the whole media thing. It's not going to have the desired outcome he wants, though, just because. And we kind of got what it was about just to show the degree of difficulty and stuff.
Oh, it's just fun.
But you remember that. Like, you were kind of hip to that. It's like it just is what it is, right? We're just out here having fun. We're having fun, right?
Yeah, that's all it was. I was down on the field briefly.
I saw you hiding
'Cause
in
I
the
think
end zone.
I wasn't hiding. So like, I wanted to watch the scrimmage, and so I spent the first half up, and then I tried to get down the right as the QB shootout was ending, and I'm walking on the field. I see Dylan switch the hoop.
Which was incredible, by the way.
Yeah, that's a 1 in a million thing. It was incredible.
That's the only good thing I got right on the play-by-play. I'm like, the first two throws, I go, oh, he's finally playing the win right to left. He was actually like throwing a slider, and then that third one he nailed. You could tell he was totally going by feel. It was beautiful.
Yeah, he has an incredible arm. So I was down there to try to talk to him real briefly just about the day, but then he was delayed and talked to somebody else. And so Heinrich was over in the corner, and I'm trying to keep notes on the scrimmage and trying to figure out what's going on there. And they're having that drive with Cash Luke long ball and DJ Singleton caught a touchdown. I'm like, I need to go up and because I got a job. We're trying to follow some plays that show up right at the end of the game. So the whole goal is, hey, this thing's going to be over by about 4:30 because they wanted people to, in theory, go over to the soccer game. And so I'm like, I got to get up there and finish writing stuff. So like, I was already up in the press box when he called my name. I'm like, I don't think I can catch it from up here. But I thought it was all good fun, and that's not really my thing anyway. Like it's not that I'm sure I wouldn't have caught the punt, but that's immaterial. Like I could, if I was at practice, in a basketball practice, I could probably step into a couple of 3-pointers in a row. But that's just I'm the hack, I'm the scribe, I'm the journalist. I'm there to write about the action, not to.
The hack, come on.
Sam, how did you think overall? Obviously, there was a lot of moving parts and kind of an unprecedented type of event, at least around here. How did you think the day in general went?
I thought it got pretty. Like I felt actually the roping thing was probably the most fun. Now people may have different opinions. I like the fastest man competition. I like the roping thing at halftime. I thought it started a little slow, and I think everybody wasn't quite sure exactly how it was supposed to unfold. And so the special teams competition, everybody kind of, the on-field PA who did a great job, kind of thought it was over, and we did too. And then they just kept kicking, Alvano and Maher, and then the punting thing took a while, and that was really hard. Like you got to have more targets out there than just two right down the middle of the field. So like, I feel like it started a little slow. And the scrimmage was actually pretty good. The scrimmage was at the very beginning was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of action. Latif played some. And defensively, they were really good early in the scrimmage. And you're not surprised by that. That's usually where it's at. And then, like I thought it got some momentum as it went on, and Rhule made the right decision to cut the fourth quarter scrimmage down to a goal to go situation. That was wise. So I feel like they could probably cram that into 2 hours if they get rid of a few things and they streamline it a little. Obviously, the biggest hit of the day was the garage sale. Like, people thought that was incredible, and just goes to show everybody in Nebraska loves the garage sale. That's something they could do again next year, and probably should. They should probably try to do it before a regular season game, and they'll get about 5,000 people down on campus just to be down there hours before the game begins.
I thought, I was talking to a couple of the old heads, and we were walking off the field, and I felt like it got better, kind of like what you said. It got better as the day went on, and you could see, because on the field and in the stadium, I think people had a ton of fun. Like, people were laughing, and the energy was good. The families had a good time. The kids had a good time. I could see, and this isn't just DB promote Nebraska 101, but I felt like with a little tweaking, now that you know how the actual competitions will run, getting your contestants in, the time frame it takes. Like, I actually think they could be onto something. Like, it could be it's a pretty cool concept, and now you know the framework where you can tweak what happens in between. You know what I mean?
Right. And now, this is my opinion. They should just have a scrimmage and then have the Husker games and not worry about whether people are going to leave. I think once you're inside the stadium, you're going to stick around for the entire program, especially if you know the program is only 2 hours. And so, like, I would have just had and I would have called it an underclassmen spotlight. So I would have called it like a young guy scrimmage. And I think they were, sort of uncertain about exactly what it was going to look like. But then, once it started, well, it's like, okay, I'm here to watch TJ Lateef. And most years that we've ever come to the spring game, we don't care what the starter does. We want to know what the freshman does. And so I think that would have been maybe the entryway into it for me. It's like, anybody who's younger, true sophomore and younger, this scrimmage is for them. And you could even, in theory, create a competition between the youngest guys on the roster and, say, UNK next year. Nebraska and UNO, as I'm sure Damon remembers, used to do this back in the 80s. And, that was the first time I saw Mike Grant, and I saw him in 1989, whatever his freshman year is, 88. The freshmen would play UNO, and it would get a pretty good crowd. And you got to see the young guys for the future play an actual football game. So, like, I think it would be cool to get underclassmen spotlight playing UNK. And I tell you what, UNK may win. I mean, it's hard. College football, I'm not trying to knock Nebraska's young players when I say that. What I'm saying is that, like, if you pitted them against senior men who are 23, 24 years old, I think you would understand how much better football players get from the time they enter college to the time they leave. And I think that would be a good experience for the young guys. Now, again, you don't put your seniors out there, you don't put your starters, but you put your true freshmen and your redshirt freshmen. I'd watch that, and I think it would draw more fans than what they got this time.
Did you end up being surprised that only 2 Nebraska players ended up getting drafted with Robinson and Fedoni?
I was a little bit surprised, yeah. I thought there might be a third one. I didn't think 5. Of course, you write in the preview that they could break the record. But I was going to be surprised if it were 5. I thought someone would take a chance on Isaiah. I did. Why not? Why not? Right?
Yeah, really good physically.
But that didn't happen. I thought Nash would be a free agent. If you go back and look, I don't know. I thought Nash would be a free agent. And then poor Tommy Hill, foot injury, and he'll have to earn it the hard way. That's a tough deal for him. And, he's had some tough moments in his career, so he'll have to figure that out. I think as of this morning, he hasn't signed with anybody, but maybe he has in recent hours. So, yeah, I was a little surprised, but I didn't think it'd be 5. Now, next year, tell me who's the most draftable guy. Damon, who is it? Who's the most draftable guy?
On Nebraska's football team?
Yeah.
Good question.
I think it's a transfer.
I'm not going to give you Key.
No.
I don't know. At knee jerk says Singleton.
Okay. The transfer I'm going to pick is either Rocco Spindler or Elijah Pritchett.
I
think
disagree
Elijah Pritchett's
wholeheartedly on Spindler, but I will.
If Pritchett's who we think he is, he can easily be that guy.
Pritchett is. So I came away from this weekend and this last week, and I paid it more mind. Right, it was intentional, getting a chance to know him. He does a lot of the other things that I think make him very draft worthy, other than just his natural size and talent. He appears to be very self-aware. He does a lot of the little things. He's not afraid to be grimy. He's other-centered. I like him more after this weekend than I have at any point ever have as little as I've been around him. I would agree with you on Pritchett.
Players like him.
Listen,
like him.
He's the real deal. And he's only getting better. He's adding to his repertoire because he's learning a little bit different technique.
Yeah.
You know, he told a story, Sam, off to the side with Jess, where he basically said, don't undersell the camaraderie that's at this university. He said, I can only compare it to Alabama and kind of high school. And I'm not going to say it was fend for yourself at Alabama, but here it's you do everything as one. And I kind of chuckle because that's all I ever talk about, right? I joke. I'm like, they got to dress the same. They got to talk the same. They don't board the bus.
Especially that room.
They don't board the bus until they all are down there. And, you know, it was just like it is exactly what he said. And he goes, he wasn't used to that. And he said the first couple of days, it caught him off guard. But he thinks that's actually a strength of this wide receiver, this O-line group. I felt like him embracing that and thinking that was a big deal. It told me a lot about his self-awareness.
Agreed. Yeah.
Isn't that something at that age? Coming from Bama.
I mean, yeah, I think we're going to find out how good Bama was. And I think a lot of what was kept, Nick Saban kept things together, but he kept things together as sort of a, you know, I would compare him favorably. I would compare him to Bear Bryant. And so when Bear died after what it was, 81 or 82 season, they had a whole season of time where it was, I think it was Ray Perkins, and then it was it Bill
Shula?
Yeah, it was Bill Curry. So they had, well, you know, what's his face came in from, he ended up being the Cardinals coach, and they won a national championship. They're pretty good when Gene Stallings was
there.
Yeah. But they just had a whole.
That was a quick stint too.
Mm-hmm. It was. He went to the Cardinals after like 5 years, but it was a tough walk that decade with Ray Perkins and Bill Curry, and they had some good teams, but they weren't that great. So I think it'll be interesting to watch Alabama. But Pritchett, and then I Sierra Wright, I think has a chance to continue and build on what he did last year. And I think, you know, sometimes these guys, these scouts, they go back and say, okay, well, what kind of player was this guy coming out of high school? Because NFL guys feel very confident that they can develop was not quite developed in college. And so they feel very confident about that. And so you'd think that recruiting rankings shouldn't matter. And in a lot of cases, they don't. But sometimes they'll go take a flyer on a guy that was a high 4-star the way Sierra Wright was. So I think they've got a chance to get 4 or 5 guys drafted next year. I think Pritchett could come out. I think, well, Spindler has to. Dane Key has to, unless they pass some sort of 5th-year eligibility rule. Sierra Wright, I think, needs to go after this coming season. So I think there's a number of guys that could potentially.
And I think we referenced
Deshaun.
Deshaun
Until 27.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said we referenced Deshaun.
Deshaun Singleton.
Yeah.
Certainly could have probably gotten drafted this year. So we'll see. I think they've got a lot of promise along a lot of the positions. Now, long term, you're talking 27. That's when Dylan Raiola can go, and that's where Riley Van Poppel will eventually get picked. I think Riley's going to be very, very good at Nebraska. He's going to end up being a terrific player over the next 2 seasons.
You know what's funny is In 10 years, Bama, in essence, had 4 coaches.
Mm-hmm.
You could make the case for 5 because Stallings left in 96.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right? So between 96 and 06, you went Mike DuBose, Dennis Francione, Mike Price with the cup of coffee, Mike Shula, and then Joe Kynes got the interim job. Hey, Joe Kynes had that voice. I tell you. So it's like, yeah, I mean, we give them a little bit of a pass. And in between there was, Ray Perkins, Bill Curry, and then Gene Stallings. So from 86 to 2006,
talk about like 8 coaches.
8 coaches. So it can happen.
Oh, no question about it. And again, I want to reiterate, Alabama had some good teams in the 80s, had some great players in the 80s and 90s. But, it can just happen that way. And
it's just hard to win.
It is. And a legend leaves, and everybody knows that. Osborne left. We don't need to relitigate Frank Solich. I think he deserved more time than he got, for sure. But you can't change the fact that the 2002 team was 7-7, and that was such a foreign concept to Nebraska football fans. And the 7-7 season isn't really on anybody but the players and coaches who were there. Not to say that we wouldn't take 7-7 now, but
actually we wouldn't.
Not this
not
year.
Now, but I get you. I know what you're saying wholeheartedly.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of things that they haven't been able to achieve as much since Coach Osborne left, and there's been other franchises that have lost their all-time coaches, and they've struggled to win too. Texas went through the wilderness when Darrell Royal retired, and the guys they had there, again, they had some good teams. David McWilliams had a couple good teams, but the reality of the issue is that Alabama's got, I think, a good coach, but he may not be able to hold it all together. He may not be able to do it. And when you get a coach who got it figured out, like a Kirby Smart, man, you pay whatever you got to do to keep him. And I think Matt Rhule may move into that category if they have a 10-win season. We'll see. Obviously, Rhule's not going anywhere. But my point is, if Nebraska makes the college football playoff in 2025, man, just whatever the lifetime contract looks like,
I told Ravi when Coach Rhule wins, just turn the lights out, just close up when you're done, because it would be. You're going to unleash a monster, because believe me, they're sitting on it. They have built this thing for the long haul, and if it clicks, I'll chuckle.
Yeah, I kind of wrote that today. Like
I will absolutely chuckle.
You can tell. You can tell that it's very close. This next season, the schedule is palatable. As I've said before, now we got 4 months to wait. The first game is obviously huge in Arrowhead, but the Michigan and Michigan State games are, they're in some ways the moment. If you beat both those teams, and I'm telling you right now, both those teams are going to be really good. And Michigan State may only be 7-5 or 6-6. They're going to be really good.
They're well coached. I do know that.
Oh yes, and they're young and they have players. And of course, remember 2 years ago when they had nothing to play for, Nebraska had everything to play for. They beat Nebraska. So these two teams are really, really good, and they got good coaches and they got physicality and size. If Nebraska wins those 2 games and they're 5-0, going out to Maryland, they'll beat Maryland. You don't have to worry about that. They'll beat Maryland. So, those 2 games are huge though. And so we'll learn very quickly in the first month of the season what Nebraska's got. And obviously the finishing kick is important, but those 2 games are huge, and they're both in Memorial Stadium.